Welcome to Marketing and Mindset for Wellness Coaches, the podcast for health coaches and wellness entrepreneurs just like you who are building a business, making the world a healthier place, and designing a first-class life. I'm your host, Kim Foster, MD and certified business coach, and I'm on a mission to help you up-level your strategy and raise your mindset so you can truly thrive and grow your business. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back. Welcome to episode number 11 of my podcast. And today I'm doing something a little different for this episode. Today I have a guest. Up to now, as you know, all of my episodes have been solo episodes, just you and me talking. But today I'm bringing on Jess Freeman of Jess Creatives. Now, Jess is an Atlanta-based award-winning graphic and web designer who helps health and fitness business owners to build authority and get more clients. Now, when she's not working with clients, you can find her teaching inside her Better Collective community and Work Your Website challenges. Jess has been featured in over 50 different podcasts and publications and also runs her own YouTube channel and her podcast, The Digital Lounge. You are going to love listening in on our chat today. Here are just a few of the things that Jess and I talk about. We talk about the 3 common myths about creating your website as a wellness coach, and I think you will find these very reassuring. We also talk about the essentials that every effective website contains, and then Jess deconstructs SEO and gives us a few simple strategies for boosting our website's SEO, which I know can be a source of a lot of confusion. And if you don't know what I mean by SEO just now, don't worry, we cover all of that. We talk about it in some really simple basic terms inside this episode. And then also we talk about how to know if you're ready for a website designer and how to choose the right one for you. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Okay, so hey, Jess, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this. So I was wondering if first, I'd love it if you could just tell me a bit about you, about your background and your story. I'd just love to hear how you got into this field and tell me a bit about what you love about your work.
Yeah, so I always tell people that I just kind of grew up artsy. And I actually decided when I was a sophomore in high school that I was going to be a designer. I remember sitting in the living room with my dad and he asked what I wanted to do, study in college. And I said, I don't know. I mean, something with computers and art, if that exists. And he was like, what about graphic design? And I said, sure. And I just decided. And so, from that point on, I was like, I'm going to be a graphic designer and never changed my mind. So I got my degree in design and then moved to Atlanta. I grew up in Kansas, went to college in Texas, then moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and worked in the corporate world as a designer for a few years. And I started Jess Creatives kind of just out of necessity in college. One of our senior portfolio projects was to brand ourselves. And so I did, and I'd done a little bit of freelance work in college, but it was really just, hey, we need a poster or hey, we need a t-shirt for soccer club. Could you design this one? And I would charge people $5 and tell them, if you just give me a t-shirt, then I'll do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so when I moved after college, I kind of had to start from scratch. I lost all my clientele because they all graduated with me.
Oh. Right.
Because we were in college. So I kind of had to start from scratch. And so that took, a year or two to really get to know people in the area. And then I started really diving into this online business world. What is this? What do you mean? There are people 22 years of old that work for themselves full time? What? Mm-hmm. I was so unfamiliar with this. Didn't know it was a thing. And 2 years after I moved to Georgia, and that would be 3 years after I started officially Just Creatives, I was able to take it full time. I was able to take my business full time. I'd done some freelance work. I'd done some kind of personal projects to get more of my work out there, and also started blogging, started using Instagram and Twitter for my business, just really putting myself out there. And it worked. And I was able to take my full time. And so when I started, quote unquote, working for myself full time, I guess, I was working with like anybody and everybody. Like I remember writing blog posts that was like, if your brand, blog, business, church, organization needs a logo, it was just anybody. And then slowly over the years, I have niched down more and more and more. And now, like you, I work primarily with health and wellness coaches and helping them with their online presence. I primarily do websites, a little bit of branding, a little bit of ebooks and print book design as well. But most of my work revolves around the website world. So I'm all about the tech nerdiness of the online space. So yeah, I've been doing this. Later this year will be 9 years in business. And yeah, it's been great. And it's really fun just to work with people in this space and also get to like collaborate with people like you who also help health and wellness coaches.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that story. Like it's really, it definitely feels like it's the perfect marriage of the things that you love. Like if you have that sort of techie, geeky side and always have, and then you've always also got that artsy, creative design side. I mean, you really just landed the exact thing that marries all of that stuff. So that's very cool.
Yeah. It's totally fun. It's like I get to use both sides of my brain, like the logic side and then the creative artsy side also. So I really, really enjoy it. And I think one of my favorite parts is every day is different. Like every project that I'm working on is different. Cause I'm, as you know, health and wellness coach is different. Like their personality is different, their brain's different, their offers are different. So it keeps it fun that I get to work with so many different people that are doing so many different great things.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, that's the beauty of having your own business too. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, cool. So let's let's dive into some of the, stuff that is your wheelhouse. Like let's talk about, I'd love to talk a bit about websites in particular. I mean, of course, that's a big thing that you were just talking about that you do. And I know that this is a bit of a struggle and a pain point for many of the people in my community. So many of the listeners today. But, I was wondering if you had some advice, or I was also thinking about, what are some common myths about creating a website? If you're a wellness coach or health coach, entrepreneur, what are some myths about building a website for your business?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say that most people believe incorrectly is that their site needs to be super fancy.
Mm.
And that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean like it has to be fancy design or fancy functionality, or it has to be like this huge thing with 20 different pages. And that is not true at all. I'm actually designing right now a one-page website for a client. And it's very basic. Like they don't have a lot of offers. It's very straightforward. And they wanted a one-page website, and it works. And so the design's nice, and we have some pictures and like their fonts and colors obviously, but they just wanted like, here it is. So I said, okay, like then we'll do that. So I think stop thinking it has to be this big fancy ordeal. That'd be the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is your website is not meant to just be this static brochure that just sits there and collects dust. Not to say, I like to clarify, not to say that you need to go update the pages and redesign the pages every month or every quarter. You really don't need to do that. But making sure when you're on a podcast, it's updated, making sure your pricing's updated, making sure you add new testimonials like every chance you get. So just keeping it updated, because that helps Google see your site more often and it helps increase your chances of you showing up in Google search when people are searching for how to, you know, help with this disease, how to get healthier, how to lose weight, how to run a marathon, whatever it is that you help people with. So if your site is more current, Google's going to want to show your site more. So it doesn't have to be fancy, but don't just treat it like a static brochure. And I think the last thing I would say with the myths is it doesn't have to be super expensive. I know a lot of people who are paying out the wazoo for hosting that is way too expensive with all these add-ons that are not necessary for all these just like extra plugins that they don't need. And like this kind of service, I mean, there's just all these add-ons that hosts will try and just, oh, like, look, you need this. No, you don't. So I would say on average, most of my clients, like their hosting is around $15-ish US dollars per month, maybe a little less if they paid like annually, and perhaps a little more if they have a really, really high traffic site. Because if you get lots of, like, I'm talking like 100,000 views or more, like you have to have more. You have to have more bandwidth on your site. And so like that does require a little bit more hosting. And then, I mean, it just kind of depends on like what functionality you need for plugins and if you actually need to pay for any plugins. But I would say if you're paying for more than 15 to 20-ish US dollars a month on hosting, that doesn't include domain usually, but I would take a look and see like, do I need to switch somewhere else? Do I need to cut out some of these add-ons that aren't really necessary? And just, see if you can save some room in your budget for something else rather than all these fancy things you don't actually need.
Right. Oh, I love that. And I'm sure that people will find that super reassuring to hear, because I think that that's a big problem. Like that's a big obstacle for people, when they're especially just starting and, or sort of in the early stages and building a website. It can feel like this overwhelming thing that's going to be just a monster of a thing to put together and also cost them a ton of money. So
right.
That's really awesome to hear you say that it just doesn't have to be complicated, and it also doesn't have to be super expensive. So I love that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that is great. So, well, actually, I mean, tell me about the essentials. Like, we're saying it doesn't need to be complicated, but what are there some really like specific things that in your experience and in your view are really like must have on your website?
So in terms of the actual content of your website, we need like a homepage, which is really just kind of a landing page of here's what I'm about. Some people treat this like they have their most recent blogs here, which I don't recommend if you are trying to drive people to your services, because they get distracted by your blogs instead of going to your services pages. So yes, that's what bloggers do, is they have their blog feed on their homepage, but that's because they're a blogger. So they want you to click on that. So homepage, kind of general, like this is what I'm about. Now, like click here to learn more about, this program, that program, whatever you have to offer. Obviously, we want an about page. This is super important. One, because people like to work with people. Working with someone on our health and wellness is a very vulnerable thing. And so we want to be sure, like Kim looks nice and normal, and she looks like someone I might like be able to talk with and work with, and someone I can trust. But also Google pays attention to this. Like they want to know that you are a real person, you have credentials, that kind of thing. So an about page is actually really important. And it's usually one of the most visited pages on a website. Then obviously, your services pages, there's a lot of debate. There's no absolute one right way, but some people prefer all of their services on one page. Some people divide each service into its own page. I really tell my clients, do you have enough content, enough text and testimonials and that kind of thing to warrant each offer being on its own page.
Right.
I've had clients before who are like, oh yeah, I really want them divided each on their own page so they can click on like my 6-month program, my one-off calls, whatever it is. But then they send me one paragraph and one photo and no testimonials. And I'm like, I don't really know if this warrants being on its own page. So really just kind of think about like, do you have enough to say about each offer? And I know some people who have, like, oh, here's like my one-off call, my 3-month program, 6-month, whatever, that are all on one page, but then they have maybe their signature program and that lives on its own page because it's their signature program. It's the thing that has the most bells and whistles in it, that kind of stuff. And so it has a lot more text, testimonials, photos, that kind of stuff. So it can live on its own page. And then I'm a huge advocate for having either a blog, a podcast, or a YouTube channel on that you obviously like that you have, obviously podcasts kind of live on iTunes and other places.
Mm-hmm.
Videos live on YouTube, but having some kind of content on your website, because that helps, one, build authority. It also helps build trust, but it also helps drive traffic to your website. So again, like I mentioned earlier, when people are searching online, how to run a marathon, how to lose weight, how to manage this disease, and you are talking about those subjects, they're going to end up on your website. Because yes, it's fun to talk about those things on Instagram and Facebook, but those things don't show up in Google search.
Right. Yes, exactly. And this is good because this is, I think that we're starting to talk a little bit about SEO then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Which I think, for a lot of people, especially like coaches and wellness entrepreneurs, get really intimidated by the term SEO or like confused, what even is that? So, I'd love it if you could just kind of help to break it down for us a little bit, the concept of SEO.
Yeah. So SEO is search engine optimization. And in very, very basic layman's terms, SEO is your site showing up in Google when people are searching for a particular topic. And so you are optimizing your content to really have keywords in it that are related to the topic. So again, how to train for a marathon. You could put that in as your blog post or podcast or YouTube title, but that's a little bit vague, a little bit too general, because I'm sure there are like 8.1 million results that are going to show up
at least
as, how to train for a marathon. Yeah. But if you say how to train for a marathon in, 8 weeks, that sounds obnoxious and ridiculous.
That's okay. We can go with this example. I like it.
Yeah. How to train in 8 weeks, or how to train in high elevation, or whatever your kind of specifics are. And it could be like, maybe you're like, yeah, but I'm just doing like a kind of general how to train for a marathon. Or, like you're like, I'm not in high elevation. Add something like for women. Most people do have some kind of niche. So it could be like how to train for a marathon after you've had a baby or something. This is also going to help your content in general be more specific, not just the title, but your content, which is going to make it more valuable. So really optimize that title. Be as specific as you can. I always say anytime you can add a number, like 3 ways to blank, or a location, if you are someone who's really location based, anytime you can add your location in the title, like best parks to run and train at for a marathon in Atlanta, Georgia, something like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a great tip.
Yeah. Anytime you can mention a brand. So if you want to be like favorite running snacks or drinks or, whatever, and like review of the Gatorade chewable things they have. Yeah. Obviously look up the actual official name of those. But so anytime you can mention a number, location, a brand, that's really, really going to help you. Because in my own example, like for my own content, if I just say like, website tips as my blog post title, that's so vague and so generic. And like, that's not going to show up anywhere.
Yeah.
But if I talk about, 5 ways to blog on Squarespace, that doesn't really make sense because there's only one way to blog, but 5 ways to whatever on Squarespace or WordPress or, whatever. That is way more specific because I'm mentioning the number and I'm also mentioning the platform. So the more specific you can be, the better. And this includes also inside your content itself.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about that. So what you've been talking about up to now is like the title. So the title is like really, just so that I make sure that I understand too, is the really specific, like long tail keywords in the title, like something that's really specific to you. And so then tell us, about the inside the content, the body content itself.
Yeah. Because Google also pays attention because they know, you could say 5 ways to whatever on Squarespace, but they're like, but are you actually, is Jess actually talking about Squarespace, or is she just saying this so she hopes it comes up? Again, they're trying to prevent clickbait.
Right.
So they pay attention to what's called keyword density. And that's basically how many times your keyword is mentioned inside the post. Okay. So we don't want to be like spammy. We don't want to be like, are you looking for a health coach in Boston, Massachusetts? I am a health coach in Boston. And if you need a health coach, I am a health coach who lives in Boston. Okay, we get it.
You can go too far. Right.
Yeah. So, but anytime you can just plug in more of those keywords, when I've, blogged about Squarespace tips and whatever, I will write it and then I'll go back and look and be like, where are a few places, not every instant, but a few places where I can add in, like if I'm talking about like on your website, do XYZ. Okay, maybe in this sentence, I can say on your Squarespace website. So adding in that keyword again. So you can kind of look at this. If you're a WordPress user, Yoast SEO, their plugin will actually help tell you like, hey, for best SEO, you should mention your keyword 8 times in this post, and you only have it mentioned 1 time. So not super like effective. You should probably go back and add that in. So, so if you're a WordPress user, I'd recommend that. Unfortunately, there's not a tool for Squarespace users or anybody else that's not on WordPress, at least not that I know of. But that's something I would definitely pay attention to is, hey, like how much are you mentioning this actual word? And then something else you can do is linking to your own content and linking to other content. So, for instance, Kim, if you put this podcast episode on your website and you have either a transcript or maybe show notes, you could, let's say you have someone else who talks about SEO in the future. You could link to this other episode in the show notes and be like, hey, on episode 52, we also talked about websites, hyperlink. So you're linking to your own content. And then you could also say, hey, Jess has an SEO blog post here, and link to a blog post on my own website. Because what that's doing is 2 different things. One, you are linking to my website, and so that's helping Google be more aware of your content. But it's also kind of, I always relate it to that analogy about you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yep.
So if you are linking to other reputable sites, Google's like, oh, like Kim's linked to Jess and Joey and Kristen, like, oh, like these are great, like, look, Kim seems reputable because these other people are reputable. It doesn't mean like overnight Kim's just going to hop to the number 1 spot for your Google keywords, but it just helps build your authority in Google's eyes. And then when you link to your own content, it, 1, keeps people on your site longer, which helps with your SEO. And 2, it shows Google that you talk about this subject more than 1 time. Because again, Google wants to show in search, they want to show the best content. So if you blog about making a vanilla cake 1 time, and then never mention vanilla cake ever again. Like they're like, okay, Kim talked about vanilla cake one time. Obviously, this is not something she's an authority on, so we're not going to show this in Google search results. But if Kim talks about, building your health and wellness business, and those keywords are there over and over and over again, and you're linking to that, making Google aware of it, that's going to help your SEO, because they're like, oh, Kim is talking about this a lot. Clearly, she knows about this. So we should, maybe bump her up a little bit in the search results and kind of see how it works. Because then they'll pay attention to, if they bump you up in search results and people click on it, how long are they staying? Because if they click and then leave right away, they're like, okay, well, clearly people aren't liking Kim's results, or whatever, the results that, what's showing in search, it's not relevant, it's not helpful, whatever. So maybe we shouldn't put that in search results. So that's kind of to kind of recap, making sure you have the keywords in your title, making sure you have those keywords again throughout your content, then link to related articles, blogs, podcasts, whatever, on your own site and other people's websites. And that is, there are over 200 factors that go into SEO. So there's like 4 to 5 little things you can do to help your own SEO when you are blogging and podcasting and creating YouTube videos.
I love that. Oh my God. That is so helpful, that just those, even if people can implement just those, and anybody can do that. It does not take that's not rocket science. Like that is something that anybody can do with their own website and blog. So I love that. That is so helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So actually, I did want to ask you, just to change direction, and I was going to say though about the Yoast. I do use that plugin and I love it. It gives like a little report card for each of your posts about like how well you're doing, even like green light, red light, like
yes. And I will say one thing about the Yoast and the little grade that you get.
Yeah.
If anybody listening downloads and installs Yoast, you'll see you get like a little green light, red light, orange light. Don't get too obsessive with getting a green light. Because I have personally, and not just me, but I know other people too, but I personally have many posts that have ranked well on Google and do not have a green light.
Oh my God. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because definitely the type A in me is always going for green light.
Me too. Oh, me too. Like if I'm like, let me work on some blogs, really like kind of fluffing them up, trying to get that green light. And then it's like, you need to mention this keyword 17 times. And I'm like, I have like 3 paragraphs. Like,
it's not going to happen.
Like so sometimes it gets a little just wonky with like this many keywords and this many links and whatever. And it's like, this feels impossible. Like this post sounds super spammy and robotic because I'm saying Squarespace 500 times in 3 paragraphs. So go, try and optimize. But if you feel like you're doing the best and it sounds natural, then leave it be. Don't go over the top just trying to get that green light.
Yeah, because then you're tipping over into that weird, unnatural, just loading it up with the word, and that's not going to sound like the human voice in any way.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, that is so helpful. All right, good. So I was also curious about, I know that a lot of people in my community are trying to figure out if they should, DIY, like if they can jump in there and build their own website. Or how do people know if they really need a website designer? Like how do you have any advice for people on how to make that decision?
Yeah. So I honestly don't think that people who are just starting out really need a website designer. I mean, obviously, yes, it would be easier and save you a lot of time and headache. So if you have a big budget, if you're just like, I don't want to deal with this, I hate technology, I have the money, I'm gonna I'll just have someone do it, then great. But if it's gonna be stressful and really stretching your budget or depleting your budget and you're just starting out, then I would say just try and DIY it. And I would also reach out. I know a lot of designers, myself included, but I know others who do like consultations. Like you can talk to them for an hour. Maybe they can do a strategy call, or once you have your website, you can get a website audit, which is something that I offer. And I know a lot of other designers offer, where like the audit is just coming in and looking at your website. And I make a list of all the things that I would change on the website if it were my website to make it more
That's
effective.
helpful.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I look at design and copy and layout and SEO, and you get like 4 to 5 pages of changes. And I mean, like, it's like single spaced. It's not a double.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a lot of changes. So there are options out there like that, where you can talk to designers for an hour, have them audit your website, whatever it is. That way you don't deplete your entire website, because as you know, Kim, like there are a lot of things that go into business. It's not just the website. And so if you've spent all your money on this website and then you don't have anything else, any other money to buy a course about like content marketing or Facebook ads or starting a business, like then you're kind of stuck. And so I would say if it's going to deplete your budget and you're just starting out, don't go that route. But if you are a few years into your business and you're really wanting to grow your business, improve, like really optimize and improve your online presence, especially if you're wanting to, start getting brand sponsorships, whether that's for Instagram or your podcast or whatever else, or you want to launch a course, you want to write a book, anything like that, then you really want to look your best and you want to look polished and professional online. So that's when I would maybe look into hiring a designer. Once you're like, I'm a few years into this, because most of my clients, when they come to me, they're like, I DIY'd my site, but it doesn't represent me anymore. I'm totally redoing my services. I want to launch a course, but I want to make sure I look the part, which is important because, as we know, we all judge a book by its cover.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
we do.
And so I think it's at a certain point, you need to kind of look at, closely at your website and say, like, is this accurately reflecting who I am as a brand? Is it bringing me the type of clients that I want and need? Am I what's my next big goal? And do I look the part?
Yeah, exactly. That's such great advice. And I mean, so much of that is about branding and positioning. Like if you're positioning yourself as a premium coach, a premium service, I mean, you really do need to have a public facing brand that supports that. So that makes a ton of sense. So, if somebody, let's say they've been in the business, building their business for a couple of years, 2-3 years, something like that, and they're ready to go to that next level with their website, like really bring that professional brand up, and they are ready to work with a designer. How do you suggest people go about choosing a designer, like finding and choosing a designer? Because I know that that feels like a really daunting task for people.
Right. It does, because there are a bunch of us out here. There are a lot of us out here, I realize. So the first thing I would do is ask for referrals, like hop on Instagram, hop on Facebook and ask. But then it sounds a little, I don't know the word, but I would ask like, okay, but have you actually worked with this person? Or is this like your best friend or your next door neighbor?
Right.
That does websites. And then I would go look at that person's website. Do you like their website? Do you like their portfolio? Do you like just what they talk about? Like if they have a blog or a podcast, like check that out. But really make sure that, especially if it's like, oh, this is my friend Joe, he does websites. Okay. But like how many websites has he done? Is this something he just does on the side and it's going to take you 8 months to get a website back from Joe because it's not his priority? So really look at the referrals and ask like, okay, but is this someone you've actually used or
right.
And that kind of thing. But also, like, if you don't want to mess with the referrals, just look at people in your industry, look at your colleagues and go look at their website. Most websites, if they've been done by a professional, down in the footer, it will say like designed by blank, and it'll have a link to the designer's website. So you can kind of see that. I would highly, highly recommend just looking at referrals, ask in Facebook groups, that kind of thing. Avoid going to like Upwork or Fiverr,
Right.
or those kind of
Yeah.
things, because those can be really sketchy, and I've heard a lot of really bad experiences there. So
Oh, that's not good. Yeah, it can be
yeah,
totally hit and miss. Like I think, yeah, referrals. I'm all about referrals. So that makes
yeah,
a ton of
yeah.
sense.
And
As
just get on the phone with them and ask, make sure you know what's included. Um, and also look at the contract that they send you, like how many pages do you get? Is SEO included? Do you get a tutorial of how to use your website? What happens after the website's launched? Do they offer support? How much does it cost to get support? And that kind of thing. So think about not just like what's included now, but like what happens in the future. Like what happens then?
yeah, that's a great point. That's a
Yeah.
really good point.
And I would make sure, the last thing I'll say is make sure that you own your website. I had a client several years ago that we were working on our website. I was like, great, can you send me your domain login? So once we're done, I can, connect it, we can launch. And she's like, yeah. So my last designer had my domain registered under their account and they passed away. So like, how do I get my domain? And I was like,
Oh no.
oh dear, I don't know. Like contact GoDaddy or whatever it was. I was like, I have no idea. So all of my clients, they fully own like the hostings in their name, the domains in their name. So be sure that like you own all of that.
That is a great tip.
I know there are some designers and companies out there that are like, oh, like, but we manage it and make sure it's secure and do the updates for you and blah, 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 which is a route you can go, but just know that then you run the risk of them like closing down their business, because I've heard that happen. Like if they don't pass away, they just close up shop. Also, you get charged like for every little thing that you need changed or every email you send them, that kind of thing. So just be aware of like what kind of agreement you're walking into.
Yeah, there's definitely some pitfalls to look out for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm curious, who are the people that you love to work with? Like how, who is your, dream client? Like who are your people?
Yeah. So I love working with female health and wellness coaches. So personal trainers, dietitians, health coaches, anybody in that realm. And I really love those who are about like 3 to 4 years in business, because they're like, I'm done DIYing and now I'm launching this thing. Like there's always this kind of like excitement of like, I'm really like launching now. Like I'm really going to put myself out there. I'm launching this course. I'm starting a podcast, that kind of thing. And so it's always just exciting to see like I'm doing this, I'm doing my website so that I can, start this next big thing. So that's always really exciting just to see what they, what's next for them. Cause then I get to help cheer them on Instagram and
Oh, right. Yeah.
fun stuff, just to, like, hey, like, look, I just think it's so cool the things that my clients do and how they help people, with whether it's like, oh, I help people with PCOS or I help people train for marathons or, whatever. It's just, it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so fun. Yeah. That's so great. Yeah. So Jess, I could probably talk to you all day, but
Probably. Yeah.
because there's so many things that I think maybe I'll have to have you back on so that we can talk even more stuff. But, it's just about time for us to wrap up. So before I let you go, where can listeners go to learn more about you and your work and check out your stuff and all that?
Yeah, so you can find me at justcreatives.com, and that's with an S after creatives. Some people think I just say just creative, but it's justcreatives.com. And then you can find me pretty much everywhere on social media at Just Creatives. And I'm actually hosting a challenge in about 2 weeks called the Work Your Website Challenge. So if you're interested, if you want some like website help, you can hop over to jesscreatives.com/challenge.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll link all of that stuff in the show notes for sure so that people can find that easily.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So thank you so much for coming on. This was really great. I mean, there's just so many things to talk about in this whole world. So yeah, I love it.
Yes, this was great. Thanks for letting me nerd out about websites and SEO and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. All right. Okay. You have a great day and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Well, was that great or what? I have about 100 other questions that I would love to ask Jess on the subject of websites and building your online home. And I'm totally serious about bringing her back. If you have questions that you'd like me to ask her when she does come back, then please let me know. Just drop me a line at support@drkimfoster.com or feel free to message me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @drkimfoster, and I'll put that link in the show notes too. I would love to hear what you found was the most valuable piece of this episode, and what's the one tip that you're going to implement right away when it comes to your website. Definitely look up Jess online. I've got all her links inside the show notes, so please do get in touch with her. And if you do, be sure to mention that you heard this podcast episode and that I sent you her way. Okay, that's all for today. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode and you're keen to keep building your wellness coaching business, let's start by getting you some more clients. You can download my free guide called 3 Ways to Win New Clients This Week. In this 11-page workbook, I walk you through the simple steps to get you new coaching clients. Just 3 easy things that you can do right away. Visit drkimfoster.com/get new clients to download that workbook for free. That's all for today. I will talk to you in the next episode.